Hey, Locust Plague, what's up? Truly the apocalypse is happening right now. Uh, and today I'm going to do an album review on the latest Green Day album, Father of All. So, Green Day, American pop punk band, and not an obscure one, a very famous one that a lot of people back in the days, back in the early 2000s, love a lot. They're back with Father of All. Yeah, that's the album title. Nothing more, nothing less. And even though there are a handful of Green Day songs and singles that I find pretty great, this album might be their worst. And actually, this album might be one of the worst rock albums of the century. And even though 2020 has only started for 1.5 months, I think this will go down as one of the worst albums of the decade. It is all the worst cliches of pop punk music condensed into 26 minutes of redundant, annoying music that constantly repeats itself. Every single song sounds like a carbon copy of one another. And even though this album is only 26 minutes, it really feels like an hour long. It is very, very, very boring. First of all, I'm gonna give a little background here. Before dropping this album, to promote this album, Green Day was invited to perform on live television, and they were instructed not to swear, not to drop the F bomb, because hey, it's live television. Every single artist in the world swearing on live television, not a good idea. But Green Day, they said no. They said no. You want me to not swear on live television? Okay, that is why I will swear. And so during the live performance, Billy Armstrong kept swearing and dropping the F bombs over and over and over again, and not even accidentally, not even a slip of the tongue. Very, very intentionally. And every time he swears it with full pride and confidence. And he thinks this is rebellious, this is punk rock, nobody's gonna stop rock music, yay! But actually, this isn't really a matter of censorship and making rock music not rock. It is a rule that every single artist has to follow. And instead of being super rebellious and punk, Green Day is pretty irresponsible, especially for Billy Armstrong's case in this incident. And then after this incident, we have the marketing for the promotion of this album, and one of the billboards say that this album has no features. This album has no Swedish songwriters. This album have no trap beats. 100% pure, uncut rock. And yeah, judging by this billboard, you can tell that this album is going to be a big boomer rock album, and that is not a good sign. But yeah, given that it is Green Day, they have the potential to write good music. Uh, you know, Going into the album, I didn't think it would be that bad. I was wrong. On this album, they spam the shallowest and the most annoying cliches in pop punk ever. And instead of sounding rebellious or edgy, a lot of the music here sounds boomer-ish and tacky. And it's music like this that sounds like they're supposed to be blasted in the PA system in a huge arena or stadium where obese boomers wave their cans of beers in the air listening to music. And we also get some of the most cheap and sugary bass riffs, and the production is god awful. It is muddy and it is messy. Also, I forgot to mention that the album art is terrible. Honestly, I'd rather listen to the fake Green Day album. There is a fake leaked Green Day track list, and some dudes decided to fake an entire Green Day album and leak it. I'd actually rather listen to that album than this one, because this one is it's terrible. It's terrible, and I know that this is going to be a very polarizing album, and it's going to really split their fan base. Starting off, we have the title track, and we get some really annoying hand claps, some really tacky poppy verses, and some really cheap guitar riffs that try to be fun and swagger, but really it's shallow, it's cheap, and it sounds really outdated. The verses and the riffs on this thing are very annoying, as they're really redundant and tedious. And this song also sounds like a ripoff of a Queens of the Stone Age song, while the vocals are muffled in a way it sounds like a ripoff of Jack White. Not in a good way, in a stale and mundane way. And we also have the second track, Fire Ready Aim, which is pretty much a carbon copy of the first track, with its cocky guitar riffs, with its wee woo vocals. And we also get some really bland organ leads, just cling 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 cling, as if it's gonna make the song bouncier and jumpier, but it only makes it worse. The third track on the album is "Oh Yeah!" exclamation mark, and we get some really clumsy and sloppy drum beats on this track. This track samples a Joan Jett song that is actually a cover song of a Gary Glitter song, which is probably the reason why the chorus of this song sounds incredibly tacky and outdated, and it sounds like it could be from the 50s, but it's revived for some reason in the year 2020. And then we have the verses, which pretty much follows the formula of pop punk clichés with its swagger riffs. The track Meet Me at the Roof is probably even worse, because it starts off like a very clean, polished car commercial with its high-pitched pianos, falsetto vocals, jumpy hand claps, and then it sort of evolves into this swingy rock song, and it just sounds very awkward and terribly performed. The next track, I Was a Teenager, actually sounds like a ripoff of Weezer, and not Weezer in their early golden age, or in their, another peak White Album age, but in their make believe age, where the music is not so good. The chorus sounds like an arena rock song, more arena rock than any other track on the entire album. It's begging to be exploded into the sky, and hilariously so. And the way the song starts off, the intro, is also pretty crappy. The bass is super low-key, it's super quiet, and then we get some bare vocals from Billy Armstrong, and again, muffled, because because why not? And it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good at all. The next track, Stab You in the Heart, is also incredibly tacky and corny. Basically, it sounds like a revival of 70s hard rock boomer song, and instead of giving it their own spin, Green Day pretty much made a 70s hard rock song, and without any nostalgic or throwback value. The guitar riffs in the verses are pretty much gent. They play the same note over and over and over again. And we also have the chorus, where the bass riff pretty much is a copy, and a very ugly copy, of some sort of 50s blue rock riff, and it sounds hideous. It truly does. And then we have the track Sugar Youth, which is the only track on the entire album that I find tolerable, that I find not as bad as other tracks. There is more clarity in the verses. The vocals are not completely drenched in low pass, and the guitar riffs and the bass, they are more tolerable. Yes, they're still very tacky and jumpy in a very dumb and tedious way, but at least it doesn't feel as as stuck and as insipid as the riffs on other songs on the album. And despite how sugary, unnecessarily sugary this song sounds, I still think it's not as terrible as other tracks, because the next track, Junkies on a High, is intolerably bad. It sounds like a ripoff of Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Yes, it sounds like Green Day ripping off their old songs, their old hits, except the song is malfunctioning. It is corrupting. It is breaking down during the verses and the choruses. Also, we get some chipmunk vocal samples. I know that this song doesn't have any trap beats, as if people would assume that there would be trap beats on a rock album. But then we get some chipmunk vocals on this album. Why? There are no trap beats. Fine. But then why are there chipmunk vocal samples? Why? Plus, at the same time, we get these high-pitched, heavenly piano clinks. Just cling, 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 cling. And they're played in a way it kind of reminds me of Imagine Dragons. Out of all rock bands, it reminds me of Imagine Dragons. And this track also reminds me of the Imagine Dragons song Radioactive. Radioactive is not a terrible song by any means, but still, Imagine Dragons? Really? And then we have the second last song, Take the Money and Crawl, which is the kind of song that you would probably hear when you go to some random suburban boondock bar in Texas in the middle of the night, and you get this reverby vocals and guitars as if it's trying to give off this really swag, unapologetic vibe. But again, the vocal effects here, the stuttering vocal effects, they are terrible. And the bass and vocal riffs are, as always, very cheap and generic. And the last song on the album is also a very strong contestant on the worst song of the album, because this is the ultimate big boomer anthem on the entire album, with its organ lines, its hand claps, and its really uppity, upbeat guitars, arena rock, heavenly yelps and shouts. And it also sounds like a very terrible Billy Idol ripoff. And after this song, I actually feel tired. It's actually a very tiring and exhausting listen. You can tell by my voice right now. I'm beat. I'm really exhausted. I don't want to listen to this album ever again. It's not the worst album in the world. Don't get me wrong here. Again, Green Day is not a terrible band. They have potential to make actual good pop punk, but yet they have to stick on some of the most tacky, annoying, cliche, cheap, shallow, and generic cliches on every single track. And it's boring. It feels outdated. And yeah, it's terrible. Feeling honestly, my favorite song here is Sugar Youth. My least favorite is either Graffitia or Junkies on a High. I am feeling a 1 out of 10 on the album. A 1, just because of Sugar Youth is kind of tolerable. So I'm gonna give it a 1. Okay, that's it, a 1. So, have you listened to the latest Green Day album? From 1 to 10, how much did you rate it? Like if you like it, hate if you hate it, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching. Also, I will be reviewing the latest Against All Logic, the latest Tricot, the Denzel Curry and Kenny Beats, the latest HMLTD, Meghan Trainor, maybe Kesha, Lil Wayne, and Loathe.